Hey there, readers and storytellers, and thank you for joining me on Story Unfolding, a show about changing creativity, ingenuity, and intellectual discourse. We share meaningful conversations with creators, creatives, and dreamers who take it upon themselves to make a difference in the world. We have an influence on the world around us regardless of our intent. The only way forward is by confronting the hard truths, asking the tough questions, and letting your voice be heard. We are better together each day with our human story unfolding. Now, I am pleased to have Prithvi Madhukar on with me today. I think I got your name correct. So you are also known as the Marketing Nomad. She is a quirky digital entrepreneur and business owner with a passion for marketing and a zest for life. She's the author of Zero to Four Figures, Lessons Learned by a Broke CEO, and you can see that back behind me right now. It's a wonderful book. She does a number of different things, but I'm not going to take that from her. I'm going to let her tell her story herself. So, Prit, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Michael. Super excited to be here.
I am excited as well. So, how about you tell us a little bit more about yourself, a little bit of background of where you're from, what you do. I know we talked about the book already, but we're going to dive deep.
Sure. So a little bit about me. Okay, where do I start? I grew up in Singapore. I had my childhood there. I came back to India to do my engineering. And then after engineering, I hated it, absolutely hated it. And I pivoted my career path, got the degree, but pivoted my career path, ended up doing my MBA, finding my passion for marketing during my MBA. And then, I mean, there was a whole series of story that we're going to get into. I'm sure Michael's going to get it out of me in this episode. But, after that, I started my entrepreneurial journey. It's been 3 years since I started this journey. Today, I am the author of Zero to Four Figures. I am a podcaster myself. I'm a YouTuber. I'm also an Etsy shop owner. I'm a Skillshare teacher. And basically, all of these different hats that I do take on. I'm super excited to be sharing my story with all of you. I think that it's got drama, it's got intrigue, but best of all, it's got a 20-something-year-old Indian girl who has absolutely no idea how her life is going to change. And I'm super excited to share that with you.
Oh, wow. Amazing. It's 20 something. Is that what you
Well,
said?
I just yes, I just turned 30. But when I started out, I was 27 when I became the CEO of my company. So
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. I think, what was I doing at 27? I have no idea. Definitely not being a CEO.
good
But
one.
that's
Oh,
really
thanks.
funny though. I want to talk about your book. I want to talk about all the things you do, but the first thing that grabbed hold of me was that you did engineering and then you hated it. So was
Yeah.
that in school?
So engineering, so basically after I finished 12th grade, I was supposed to choose a career path. And unfortunately, the society that I lived in at that point, there are only three career paths for any person. It's either you become an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer. And so, I mean, I couldn't stand the sight of blood, so doctor was out. And then debating between law and engineering, I decided to take up engineering. My parents didn't pressure me, of course, but there was really no other career path that anyone could possibly take at the time. It wasn't, social media was not that popular. The idea of being a content creator or even a business owner was looked down upon. If you chose any other path and you found success, people would chalk it off as sheer dumb luck. There was a lot of stigma basically about taking non-traditional routes. So I started doing my engineering, and it was in my second year, I was very clear that I did not see the next 40 years of my life doing this. And unfortunately, or fortunately, during that time, my dad, I was just sitting around the house during summer holidays, and my dad, he's a very typical Indian parent. He's like, why don't you go out there and get some real world experience? Maybe you'll find your love for engineering out there. Maybe it's not the it's you just that you don't like the textbooks. And so I told him at that time, I said, with the marks I have, I don't think anyone's going to hire me as an intern. My dad laughed. My mom was not amused by that joke. And so, because I was so, I was very grumpy about the whole thing about getting an internship, my dad said, okay, you know what? Come to my office. So both my parents are entrepreneurs themselves. My dad, he took me to his company and he said, You wait over here. I'm going to get an employee and you just work with him. And I was upset because, I wanted to spend my holidays whiling away time. I didn't want to work or do anything remotely that involved brain activity, right?
Yeah.
So I went with this employee and he said, okay, just figure out the grammatical mistakes on the website. And so that was pretty easy. And I was actually quite happy to do that. And then slowly, as I went through the grammatical mistakes, there were some web pages that didn't fit the aesthetic of the overall website. And I informed that to them. Then I started writing captions for them for their social media, their Facebook page at the time. And slowly and steadily, what I was doing was actually marketing, but I didn't know what it was called at that time. I absolutely loved my time at my dad's company. I spent 2 months over there. I went there every day willingly. I went back there for the next 2 years as well for the summer holidays. And by the end of my degree, it was pretty clear I didn't want to do engineering. And I said, okay, you know what? I am going to be a business owner someday. I might as well get a degree in business. And I had that very strong inclination because ever since the age of 13, my parents have been talking about their businesses. So there was a very strong feeling on my end that I would become a business owner someday. And so I did my MBA, and in my first marketing class, I still remember the feeling and all of the entire setup. My professor is up there in front of the class, and she's asking marketing questions just to engage the class. And there I was, Michael, like a total nerd. I'm raising my hand for every single question. And it's not just simple marketing questions, It's questions like Coca-Cola campaign 10 years ago or Maggie campaign 3 years ago. And what I realized at that point is my brain had subconsciously picked up all of this information throughout my life. It was what was interesting to me. I loved it. And, I was just very inclined towards it. I just didn't know it was called marketing. And so at that moment in time, after feeling so lost and confused and in absolute, confusion for the 4 years of my engineering, I had finally found my passion. And that is actually the story of how I found my passion. And because it took me that long to find it, I made a small promise to myself at that point that I will never take my love for marketing for granted, ever. And I think in a lot of ways that has fueled my entrepreneurial journey as well.
Wow. That's an amazing story. That is not what I expected. So I I was interested in the engineering part because I also started out as engineering, and I did not take 2 years, luckily. I took 2 weeks and I was done. But yeah, I guess maybe the extended time period for you helped you find your way. And I think I'm still kind of I'm still messing around. I don't know. I don't know if I found my way yet. I'm doing a whole bunch of different things.
Come on. Author of 2 books, still figuring out your way. Come on, Michael.
I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, so my engineering experience, I went to Brown University, and they had this open curriculum, and they had the first 2 weeks where it was called a shopping period, and you could go and you could audit any class, and then you could drop them if you wanted, right? And I had gotten accepted to a bunch of engineering programs around the world or around the country. And I was like, okay, I'm doing engineering. Engineering is what I want to do, blah, blah. And I wanted to do aerospace engineering. Brown didn't have that. They only had mechanical engineering. And I go there and I'm sitting in class and I'm just like, this is really boring. Like, this is not what I envisioned. I did not romanticize this in my head. And meanwhile, I was trying to join the crew team. I was exhausted, and 9 a.m. classes were terrible for me. And I was just like, nah, I'm not doing it. So I just dropped engineering. And that year I ended up taking a course in every single discipline that I could. So all 8 courses were 8 different disciplines. So wow. Yeah, it was insane. But yeah, I think that's that led me to where I am, that I just have many hats and I do a whole bunch of different things. The term I like to use is multi-potentialite. Have you heard that term?
No, I have not. And that's a fantastic term. I think it completely encapsulates what you do and who you are as a person as well.
Yeah, I think you as well. So you need to check this out. I will have to send you the link, but all you watching, check out a video called, I forgot what it's called, but it's by Emily Watnick. It's a TED Talk, and she talks about how, society has changed. We used to be this society where we thought, we needed one true calling, right? And that was there's still a lot of cultures that believe that, there's still a lot of, even here in America, you're bred and educated to do one thing, like you mentioned. But the entrepreneurial spirit is, about doing everything. And there's a way to
Absolutely.
do that. You don't have to, what is it? You don't have to specialize, you can be
Yes.
good at many things. And so that's what multi-potentialite means. And I feel like you said, it encapsulates me, encapsulates you, a lot of other entrepreneurs. I
Absolutely.
I want to discuss more about your book first before we get
Mm.
into some other questions I got. So how about you tell us a little bit about your book? What got you in that path? Yeah, just floor is yours.
Yeah, sure. So for me, I think I need to start at the beginning of the story of how I started my entrepreneurial journey. So I was fresh out of my MBA program, and I was so full of, hope and passion for marketing. I thought I was gonna, change the world in the United States, and I got a fantastic full-time job at a top solar firm on Long Island, and it was amazing for a year. And being an international student, I was given 1 year of working capacity under my student visa. And then that was supposed to be converted by my employer. Like they had to file an application for the H-1B work visa. And in that year, there were 200,000 applicants and only 85,000 were processed in that year. It's a lottery, basically. And mine was one of them that wasn't processed. And for me, that meant that I had to come back to India. Again, at that time, a lot of societal misconception and pressure that you've got to be successful only in a particular country or city or state or company. And again, that was very, very painful for me. Frankly, it was one of the most painful, brutal phases of my life that I had to completely start from scratch. And for me, at this point, I had two roads, a fork basically. One path was to put my resume on LinkedIn and get full-time jobs in India or in other countries. And the second route was, well, I was already at ground zero. And maybe if I started something on my own, I could try it for for a year, see where it took me. And if it didn't lead me anywhere, if I couldn't do it, then I could always go back to putting my resume on LinkedIn. And so it was, I guess, my way of trying to create some light out of a very, very dark situation for me. And I'm so glad that I did that, because a year after starting my entrepreneurial journey, it was pretty clear to me that something was clicking for me and I was able to make the difference in the world that I had always envisioned. And through this entrepreneurial journey, it's been 3 years. I started out broke. I didn't take any financial support from my parents nor my sister. And whatever savings I had, which frankly wasn't a lot, it was just 1 year of work experience. And I was living so close to New York City. That was basically, not a lot of money, basically. And so I put in all of that. As I started out as a broke CEO, very frankly. And when I started out, it was very frustrating to me to see books that talked about 7 or 8 figures. And when I wanted to actually implement the steps, being a broke CEO, there was a lot of advice and tips that I couldn't implement. Not just that, no one really talked about the mindset shift that is absolutely needed when you start this entrepreneurial journey. I mean, the image that the society has, everybody seems to think that you will hit 1 million in your bank account within a year, or you're going to get 1 million subscribers, or you're going to hit 8, 9 figures within a year. It doesn't happen like that. The journey is so long, so long. And there are so many extreme lows that we have to face as entrepreneurs. And I found myself completely unprepared, and it was very, very frustrating for me. So I decided at that point that I wanted to create a guide for people looking to the entrepreneurial path. One, explain what the reality of the journey is. Number two, showcase my path as well, not just the highs, but including the lows, the failures, the challenges that I faced, the strategies that I implemented that backfired, that actually worked, that led me to my breakthroughs. And I wanted it to be a very realistic guide to this entrepreneurial journey. So that was the objective of my book. And the other objective of my book was, again, a lot of us, we feel that we have to hit 7 or 8 figures for us to feel successful. But I truly believe that the minute you start this entrepreneurial journey, that is a success in itself. And I believe that we owe it to ourselves to celebrate every single milestone that we have passed. And I think that we, being entrepreneurs ourselves, have to define our success, because I think we started this journey to have that freedom. And if we deprive ourselves of that freedom, then why did we start this journey in the first place? So I think one was to give a very realistic outlook for the entire entrepreneurial journey. Number two, give it as a guidebook for people looking to get into the entrepreneurial journey. Number three, as a support system for people already in the entrepreneurial journey. And number four, I guess it was encouraging people to define their own successes and to view themselves as a success. I mean, the name of my book is 0 to 4 Figures. And I know that Michael, when he first saw the title and he asked me this, why 0 to 4? Why isn't it 0 to 6 or 0 to 7? And I said, yeah, that's the point of the book. It's, celebrate every single figure that you cross. And yeah, that's the whole main idea of my book.
That's wonderful. I think, as you can see behind me, that's why I named the episode as I did, The Small Victories, because I was fortunate to be a part of this journey, and I got to help you beta read this book, and it is absolutely amazing. I highly recommend it to everyone. But that's a wonderful story. I think you hit on a lot of key points, that we are pressured in society to, hit that overnight success. And I feel like, we talked about this shift in multi-potentialism, moving from this one true calling to multiple things. There's still all this pressure pulling us back to the corporate world, this one set path. And I think that is part of this, overnight success, because if that is bred into us and we don't hit it, we're going to go back to that path, right? So I think you breaking the mold like this is a huge deal. I think this is really good. I have a lot of entrepreneurial friends that I've recommended it to because, well, frankly, we have mastermind groups every week and we've had these discussions, we have these lows that we're just not getting the hits on our website. We're not making the sales. You mentioned me being I've published 2 books, I haven't had the sales that I hoped for. I seen, Harry Potter, all these great books that just sell millions of copies. And I'm like, why are my books not selling? Like, when people review it, I get 5 stars, but it's hard to get enough people to see it, So you have to celebrate those small victories. And I think I actually took some of your advice into, my own life and the way I'm trying to, I have that perfectionism mentality, and I'm trying to break from that. I'm trying to break that mold. And I think right now, thanks to you actually helped me with NaNoWriMo going on, where you write 50,000 words for the month of November. I don't have time to do that, but I see everyone on social media doing it and jumping on, and I'm just inclined to say, okay, throw everything out and I'm going to write my book. I decided I'm going to participate, but I'm going to participate in a way that I'm just going to write when I have time every day. I don't care how many words I get done. I've written in 2 days 500 words. That's not anywhere near pace for 50,000. But those small victories. And I actually made a video yesterday about celebrating those small victories. And I think that's really important. So I love that that's a message that you're bringing out. So thank you for that. You answered so many of my questions just in your story. So I'm going to take a little diversion and talk more about the culture that you were brought up in, and this idea of you breaking the mold, because you're breaking the mold for entrepreneurs with the 0 to 4 figures. But you also mentioned in your culture, you were brought up to, have one of 3 paths. How did you, I guess your parents helped you with that, but how did you personally grapple with breaking from that expectation? And how do you see you as an example to others in your situation that can, take that path as well, take those steps?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, Michael. And I do have to mention that even though my parents are entrepreneurs, they're in the civil engineering field, and one is in electrical field. So even though they're entrepreneurs, people would feel secure looking at them because it was in the engineering field. And so for me to have taken up marketing, let me first talk about me choosing marketing as a path, because even when my parents sent me to do my MBA, they assumed that I would probably take up something related to math. And it's not that, I mean, I love math, no shade there, but it's just I wasn't inclined, I wasn't passionate about it. And so I even remember, telling my dad, when I decided I wanted to take marketing as a concentration, he was not happy. And, and my dad's probably the most chill person that you'll ever see. And he was very, very worried that I was probably not going to make it, or that I would, this was a decision that I would regret later. And of course, they're very, very protective of me, as all parents are. And I'm sure, Michael, you are of your kids, so you probably understand where my dad was coming from. And so at that point, I remember there was a period of friction between me and my dad. He really didn't understand why I was so hell-bent on following my passion. And at the same time, he was trying to be supportive, but he didn't know how to be without, it was a mess for him. And I completely understand where he was coming from as well. But I stuck onto it. And I guess one thing that I do want to mention to people out there, your loved ones are coming from a place of love. You have to understand that they are looking out for you. For them, there is only one thought process that has worked up until now. And for them to imagine a second path for you, there is a natural sense of protectiveness that will come. And you have to understand that. But at the same time, you have to also put yourself first. And I think that's what I did. So respectfully, I did not throw any tantrums, or I was very, very respectful. I told him that I understand where you're coming from, but I really think that I can do this. And I hope that you can trust me. And it took him 6 months. And it wasn't that, we were not talking or anything. It's just we didn't talk about my career. But every other conversation, it was completely light. We were laughing, but it did bother me a bit. And it was only until I started my MBA 2016. My dad visited me when I was at my full-time job in 2018. So it took him 2 years to actually come to the fact that I was actually doing well, and not just thriving, but doing well. So he met my coworkers when I was at my full-time job, and they all had such, praise for me, and they were so in awe of my marketing acumen. And it was at that point that he said, okay, and he completely backed off and he said, whatever you're doing, I fully support you. So I think it comes to that point, you have to keep working. You have to put yourself first up until that point where you have a little bit of success. Yes. And not just that, until they feel secure in the validation. And I think you've got to give them that time to get there. But at the same time, you've got to keep working on yourself. You've got to keep working on your passion. You've got to keep putting yourself first and putting your thoughts out there, putting your work out there. That's super, super important. And so after that, for me to take up the entrepreneurial route, they were so supportive. Like I said, I mean, for me, I personally did not want to take any financial support, but if I had asked, I'm pretty sure that they would have given. Like, they were all in. And I think for entrepreneurs, the biggest thing is emotional support. And I do acknowledge that I have the privilege of having that emotional support from my parents. What I do want to tell people out there, sometimes your family might not be there for you emotionally. I would say you get to choose your village, and they could be mentors, they could be peers, they could be your friends. Choose people who are going to be there for you throughout this journey, because you're going to need them. It's not necessarily blood related, but they do have to be supportive of your journey. That really, really does give you that push. As much as I say self-motivation is awesome and you really need to have it, having that external emotional support does help. It really does give you that extra push. And yes, coming to the point of self-motivation, I think I've always been an outlier, I guess I would say. I've always been the odd kid growing up. I never wanted to do what everybody wanted to do. I always, like, if people would do 5 things, I would do 10. I was always that odd kid, and I loved that. And I think all through the years, me being the odd kid was validated. People looked up to me for being that odd kid. So I never felt that hesitation saying that I was doing something different. For me, it was just being myself. And so I'm not sure if I can give you any advice on that part of it, but I do admit that there was fear that what's going to happen, or can I do this? Am I willing to take that risk? And all of those, that self-doubt and imposter syndrome, those came into play more so for me than taking the other path. Because for me, what I truly believe is, if you are doing something that is not harmful for anyone else around you, and it's something that you really truly want to do it. Just do it. Don't worry about the consequences. Trust yourself to find a way. Just do it. I hope that answers your question, Michael.
Definitely, definitely. I love your answer. So I'm curious with the fear component though, what happened if you failed? Did that run into your brain, and like how did you deal with that?
Absolutely. So for me, what happened if I failed? Yes, I have a sort of process, because I do struggle with anxiety myself. So I basically have a process that helps me through this entire fear thing. So for me, it's called the if-then strategy. I talk about it in my book as well. So if this happens, then what am I going to do? And I had chalked out everything, Michael. If this did not work out, I'll put my resume on LinkedIn and I'll go for a full-time job. If this did not work, if I crash and burn, then how would I get my first money? I would probably have to borrow some money from my parents, get started, and then, again, start, doing a full-time job. So I had a list of things. And even to this day, anything new that I take on, which is probably every single day for us entrepreneurs, there's always the if-then strategy that I put into place. If this does not work out, then what do I do? And that gives me a sense of comfort and security. It really does.
That's great advice. Yeah. So before we run out of time, I want to dig into one more kind of deeper question. Gender. Is that something that you had to deal with, one in America, two in India? Like, how did you deal with that?
So yes, that's actually a very, very deep topic, but I'll try to do justice to it. So gender, yes, but I think that given this day and age, Michael, given that the barrier of entry is really relatively low compared to 10 years ago, it's, I wouldn't say easier, but it is much more possible for women to become entrepreneurs today. Okay, it costs nothing to set up a social media profile. It costs nothing to put your work out there. It costs nothing to talk about your work. And I think that that's one of the things that was a hindrance back then, the monetary investment that needed to go in the entrepreneurial journey. But if you are a digital entrepreneur, I think that the barrier of entry is very, very low. Not just that, you will hit stigmas at every single point along the journey. And I think that it's on to you to put your foot down when things are getting out of hand, or to just ignore. These are the only two things that I do. Even to this day, there's a lot of stigma with respect to my gender. I feel that, that racism and that, that sexism that does happen even when I interact with people, either I ignore it, or if I feel that it's actually harming me, I actually put my foot down and say, no, I do not allow this kind of behavior. And most of the times people don't realize it's not an intentional, racism or sexism that happens. It's very unintentional. So when you put your foot down and when you have your own boundaries, I think that's where it sets. And I think it begins with us deserving we are worthy of equality. I think it really starts with that.
Okay. So a lot of that self-work is really important.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And I think that is hit in your book a lot. So if you check out Zero to Four Figures, you'll learn those lessons as well. Real quick before we run out of time, I do want one more question. So there's a quote that's very important to me and has helped me through my transformative experience throughout my life. And it's by Maya Angelou. And the quote is, "I did then what I knew how to do. Now that I know better, I do better." Is there anything that you would do different?
No,
Nothing.
absolutely not. No, no. Every single misstep, every single failure, every single heartbreak has led me here, Michael. And if I had even skipped any one of those steps, I would not be here today. So actually, I disagree with that. I would not have it any other way. No way. Every single mistake, I loved it. I enjoy looking back at those mistakes too. I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. Yep.
But those mistakes have helped you learn though, right? So
Absolutely.
they they
Absolutely.
they transformed the way you saw the world, the way you interacted, the way you know reacted to adversity, right? I mean, I can't
Absolutely.
imagine what you felt when you were told, you know, you can't stay in this country.
Yeah,
You know, that
absolutely.
I mean, I can because I read it in your story, but you know, I can empathize, but it's
But
baffling
yes,
to
yes.
me. You know, it had to be so difficult. I mean, I think that's taking it to a next level of, you know, here in America, you know, going and having to move home to your parents, you know, I guess that's the closest thing I can liken it to, you know, that you're like, oh, I'm a failure. I have to go home and move home to my parents. You had to move all the way
Yes,
across the world back to your country. Like,
yes.
I'm sure that was difficult.
It was very, very painful, very, very painful. But honestly, looking at how gratifying the last 3 years have been, I would not have it any other way. It was meant to happen, Michael, in a lot of spiritual ways. I think it was just meant to happen. I was meant to come here. I was meant to write my book, to make a difference in my own way. I really was meant to do all of these things.
That's amazing. That's a great perspective. So what's new for you, or what's next for you?
Couple of marketing books on the way
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, a couple of marketing books. This was more business. I mean, it had different topics, but my next three books, they're part of a series. They're going to be very, very marketing intensive and more strategy based. And other than that, more traveling because I am the marketing nomad after all, helping businesses across the world in any and as many ways that I can. Of course, sky's the limit, and world domination is probably my next target.
Excellent. Excellent. So do you have a place that you're going next?
I actually really like a place as in like a country, like
Yeah,
for
like where are
vacation.
you traveling? Where are you traveling?
Oh, yeah, I really want the to kind of go into the Chiang Mai, the Thailand digital nomad community, kind of
Oh
live with
yeah.
them for a little while. I think
Okay.
that's on my list. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. Well, why don't you tell our guests where they can find you?
I'm the marketing nomad everywhere. Instagram, the marketing nomad, YouTube, the marketing nomad podcast, the marketing nomad show, Etsy, again, the marketing nomad Skillshare Teacher, Prithvi Madhukar, that's my full name. Ooh, lost my breath over there. And, come over, come say hi, tell me something that you liked about Michael's podcast episode, and let's chat. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was wonderful having you. I hope to
Thank
be part of
you.
your next book journeys, and I hope to be a guest on your channel soon. But
Absolutely.
everyone out there listening, check out the book. I don't know if you can see it here. Oh, let me try and show it.
Oh,
Oh, there we
thank
go.
you, Michael.
Pre sent me this book all the way just straight to me, so I'm really happy. I got it. It's beautiful. It's absolutely
Thank
wonderful,
you.
and has my little blurb right there in the front.
Yes.
So
Thank
I
you so
highly
much for
recommend
that,
it to
Michael.
all of you. Thanks again, Pri, for coming. I hope
Thank
to
you for
have you
having me.
again soon. And for all of you listening, read more and write mindfully.